Good evening.
Crazy. It was a crazy day today, but forgive me. I'm here.
We are here. We are live.
Hi, how are you tonight, darling?
I'm good. How are you today?
Not too bad, not too bad. You look
Well,
beautiful.
thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for actually facilitating today. Since this is somewhat of a special day for me. So I wanted to do things a little bit different, and I'm glad that you are here to help out.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I love what you're doing at Speak, and I think it's something that everybody needs, even the people who don't know they need it, because a lot of times we try to brush off what we're going through. We don't want to feel the feels. So I appreciate that, for those of us like myself who don't talk to people, you creating this outlet for us. So, tonight we're going to have an amazing discussion, a very intimate discussion with you, Rachel. So thank you everyone for coming tonight. I really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for joining the Empowered Pause. Rachel, thank
Yes.
you for having me. I appreciate you. You are a wonderful, divine woman, and you've been making strides for quite some time to bring this baby to fruition. So it's been festering in your belly for a while, and now you finally birthed it. And I'm just grateful to be here. Why don't you tell people a little about yourself, and then we'll get started.
Surely. Well, for those of you who do not know, I am Rachel Chinoa J. I am the founder and CEO of Speak Initiative, which we launched this past January. Speak is initiative that stands for Suicide Prevention through Empowerment, Action, and Kindness. And I had this dream for Speak probably for about 12 years before it came to fruition. And it was birthed out of pain and a need to explain and to help people who are going through mental health challenges and who may find themselves having suicidal ideations, to know that they're not by themselves, and also to help listeners or people who support people who have mental health conditions, to give them information, to empower them as well, to arm them with the things that they need to be a good support and be able to be in the life of someone who may have these challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it is Suicide Awareness Month. I know we're coming down to the wire, to the end of it, but
Yes.
can you talk to people about Suicide Awareness Month and why Speak is Speak? What does it stand for? What is it about? Why is it something you hold so near and dear to your heart?
Well, Speak is, um, again, suicide prevention through empowerment, action, and kindness. And I believe the concept, give me 1 second. I'm trying to change the privacy of this video so people can actually
I was just checking that to
see
see
it.
if we were live. I didn't see it there.
Yeah, I don't know why it does that, but that's fine. Let's see. Give me 1 second. I think it's public now. I think, nope, it's not. Give me 1 second. This is interesting why it keeps doing that. Okay, now it's
The
public.
same issue you were having before?
Yes, I believe it's public now.
Okay, good.
So people should be able to find us.
Yeah, I want to share it, so people can be
Yeah,
involved and know what's going on, and maybe see how they can get involved.
right. And I'm on the speak page as well. I
Awesome.
believe that that is being shared publicly, but I just want to make sure. Yes, it is. So we're public in all places, like we should be. Sorry about that delay. But
No.
yes, the things that I have experienced and the challenges that I have faced are the reasons why I created Speak Initiative. I was a person who didn't really express some of the challenges that I was having. People were not aware that I was diagnosed with a mental health condition. I was masking very well. I was functioning very well for a while until the mask had to come down. And, I couldn't not face what was going on. And the only way I figured that I was able to explain this and help other people actually acknowledge what's going on with them. Um, I couldn't do it any other way. I had to start speaking for myself. And
Hmm.
then that actually allowed me to empower others and realize that, some of the calls that I would receive or some of the conversations that people would have, that there are a lot of people struggling and not knowing that there is help out here. So Speak was created as kind of like a bridge to close that gap between the care that we deserve and the illnesses or the illness that we are dealing with.
Like it. That's amazing. That's beautiful.
Thank
So
you.
you told us what SPEAK stands for. Now, I know I don't want to be too insensitive, and I also don't want to be overly sensitive, but you know, people like myself, I have questions that I want to know about because you sometimes want to understand what's happening at that moment, what's going on in someone's mind
Right.
when they're dealing with all of these compounding thoughts and emotions and whatever other issues, right? So in that moment, like,
Right.
what was going through your mind? What was the last straw? What was that thing that said, you know what, I'm done?
Oh, wow. That's a heavy question, but I can answer it. Um, I would have to say probably for 8 months prior to January of 2009, when I overdosed, for 8 months, I was in a deep depression. And it started because of medication management. I wasn't on the right meds. The meds were making me sick. I wasn't feeling like myself. I had to stop working. I went into, that was my first visit to a psychiatric ward. I was feeling unlike myself, period, for 8 months. And I was having a really challenging time. Just like last week's share or last week's Empower Pause, I talked a little bit about seasonal affective disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that was playing a part and what was going on with me as well. So I noticed the heaviness probably in about August, because that's when my seasonal affective disorder usually starts. And I don't think I was in the right care at that time.
Mm-hmm.
There were some transitions that were going on, and I was having a hard time finding a new psychiatrist. The meds I was on were not enough at that
Mm-hmm.
moment. And leading up to that, it was the holiday season. I'd had a very trying week between Christmas and New Year's. And that day, it's strange because the day that I overdosed, I went about my day as if it was a regular day. I interacted with some people that I used to do role playing gaming with. I interacted for about 6 hours,
Mm-hmm.
went out, talked to people like everything was fine until I got in my car. And it was just so much pain and so much lack of understanding of what was happening with me. And it was a lot of fear that this was going to be my life forever.
Mm-hmm.
I actually thought that this was it. This is if I didn't have anyone to really talk to about my diagnosis that I could really say what's going on. It wasn't until probably a few years ago that I came to the terms that this is a lifelong illness. This is something that you have to deal with every day, not just the days that you don't feel well, because there are going to be days when you feel fine and other days when you don't feel fine, right?
Right.
So it was a long 8 months. And that Saturday, I just had enough. I was exhausted. I was overwhelmed. I wasn't overly emotional in the moment, but I was very clear and what I wanted to do, which was I call the irrational logic of that moment. So
Okay.
yeah, that's what happened with me. And
That's
I see comments. Hello, Simone, AQ, Diane. Thanks for joining. I
Hi,
actually see.
everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're just getting started. I've got a few questions I'm going to ask Rachel J. Rachel Chenoa J. And I'm so grateful that you guys were able to join us tonight. Thank you so much. So, Rachel, in all of this happening and the build up and, down to that moment, up until that time, had you tried to reach out to friends or speak to someone who you felt like you could trust? Was there anyone who might
I
have
was
known but may not have taken it as seriously?
I was in therapy at the time, and I assumed that, and assumptions, we know how those go. I assumed that I didn't want to burden anyone who loved me with that
Mm,
information, right? Um, it's unfortunate because the same people who were in my life then, most of them are still here now, and we have a different relationship because I know I don't need to hide. So
mhm.
I did have people in my life that I could trust. I did have people to talk to, but I was not utilizing them the
Were
way
you
I needed to.
afraid?
I think I was afraid because I didn't know what was going on. And as far as I knew, I was the only person in my family who was different.
Hmm.
Um, all of the medication that was going on, all of the therapy that I was trying, it was really a lot. It's still a lot, but now I understand it in a different way. It's not a death sentence to have a mental health condition. If it is managed, if you are in great care, and that's
Hmm.
another reason why Speak was developed. A lot of us do not understand the the guidelines or the things that come with having a mental health crisis. What do you say to your doctor? What are the
Mm,
questions that you may want to ask? What's going to happen if you tell your doctor that you don't feel great? You
right.
know, what are they going to, say, oh gosh, we're going to lock you up tomorrow? It's not necessarily that, right? Be able to trust your healthcare providers with that information. And a lot of us don't, you know, we a lot of us don't go to doctors a lot of the time unless it's an emergency.
Hmm.
Um, we figure that we can wish away some things. We might want to pray them away. We
Hmm.
might want to hope them away, but a hope is just a hope. It is not reality. We said that the other day.
Yeah,
Um, and you actually have to take the steps for wellness, the steps to wellness for yourself.
absolutely. 100%. You know, you obviously come off as a very strong person, right? So I'm sure people were probably shocked when this
Yeah,
happened, right? They're like, what? Rachel? No, it couldn't be,
yeah,
right? But sometimes people forget that strong people are weak sometimes. And sometimes we need someone we can be weak to or an outlet that will allow us to be vulnerable,
yes.
but we do struggle with being that strong person, finding someone to lean on,
Mhm.
so in being that person, what would you say are some triggers that people might want to look for their loved ones? And, how can they identify if they're elevated or if they're like on edge or something like that?
A lot of time, we don't know what the triggers are because they're individual and they're unique to each person.
Hmm.
However, there are some things that do come up. Let's say if a person is withdrawing, that was one of my symptoms, and I didn't realize it until we had a different discussion. I was like, yeah, I was a bit withdrawn. I wouldn't go out like my usual self. I'm an introvert, even though I seem like an extrovert sometimes, but I wouldn't do the normal things that would come with the Rachel experience. I
Right.
didn't want to celebrate my birthday. Um, I didn't want to wash my hair.
Mm.
That was a thing
Basic
for me.
things.
I didn't even want to groom myself. I started withdrawing from things that I loved.
Hmm.
Um, if a person starts talking about wanting to die or they're feeling hopeless, like they have no reason to live, I think I said some things like that, but not to the right people. I probably
Mm.
said them in passing, knowing that no one would pay attention because I didn't want to ring any bells. So I was doing a really good job of masking how I was feeling, but there are little things that you can probably pull up. Again, another warning sign is people talking about they're feeling trapped or they're
Mm.
in unbearable pain if they feel like they're a burden to other people and expressing that. Um, Say, for instance, they are using more alcohol and drugs, then maybe they don't do those things and you see an increase of use. That may be something to think about. Sleeping too much,
Mm.
sleeping too little. I am a victim of that. That is one of my symptoms when I'm not feeling great, withdrawing or feeling isolated. And some people get into a rageful moment and talk about seeking revenge. And sometimes that revenge is hurting other people by hurting yourself.
Oh, that's deep.
Um, that can happen too. That was not my experience because I actually did not want to hurt people. In my mind, I was lessening the burden of this experience, and that was not true.
Right.
It was an irrational thought, and my what I thought was my logical process of leaving this place, but it wasn't logical. It was all pain and it was fear, and it was right as AQ said, crawling into the toxic cocoon.
That's deep, AQ. Yeah,
Thank you
that
for
is
the
deep.
comments. I see a lot of people are commenting. I usually don't see them, so I'm glad that people are
Absolutely.
watching and getting this information. I just want to say welcome again. Thank you so much, Lisa, for facilitating this discussion today.
My
Um,
pleasure. Thank you.
of course, we're here every Wednesday at 7:15, but this is since we're at the end of Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month, I wanted to do a special empowered pause to celebrate the life of someone who was important to me and to express why Speak is a very important initiative that we're out here trying to work on.
Do you want to talk about her for a minute? How she
Um,
touched your life?
uh, the person we're speaking of is Margaret Fingeroff. She used to be my therapist after I overdosed. So I didn't meet her until March of 2009. And we had a very interesting relationship. It was more than therapist client, it was more so relative, mother, sister, someone I could really trust. She allowed me to awaken my emotions as a human being. I was hiding a lot of the time. I didn't want to feel anything really because I was afraid of what emotions meant. They were always so big for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I found safety in that relationship. And unfortunately, she um, passed as a result of a completed suicide. So again, even the people who can help can be
Suffer.
suffering at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. So
Absolutely.
today's her birthday. She would have been 70 today. So I just honor her. And this work I do is to honor her as well, to to stay strong, to fight every day, to encourage others that we do have the strength and you do have the fortitude to keep going. You
Absolutely.
know,
And it gets better. It does get
it
better.
gets better. It gets so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And it may take time. It's not an easy journey. It is not something that I would glaze over and say, oh, you're going to be fine. This is work. It's work every day. And I am grateful for a good friend telling me that and expressing that to me. Hey, Pam, how are you? I see LaShawn, I see Pam, I see Simone, AQ. Awesome, awesome. I appreciate everyone who's watching. I really do.
Man, absolutely. Would you say speak helped you find your voice, so to speak?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that working on Speak, and it came to me in a very, very challenging moment. I was crying in the shower in September of 2012. And it was a really hard time, but I knew that something in me had to speak. I was not a person who was used to speaking out loud. I would write. I'm a writer. I rather write stuff down than to say it out loud. And at times there were there were there were moments when I should have been using my voice as opposed to just letting it be.
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn how to speak and to make this initiative, to bring it to reality. I had to learn how to speak. I had to learn how to open up. I had to learn how to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
I had
Was
to
that the hardest part? What was the hardest part of learning to use your voice?
the hardest part for me was understanding that I had something to say. I
Mm.
used to believe that there was I didn't have anything important to say. I was babbling all the time.
Mm,
But I realized that there was power, and even in the babbling. You might touch on something that resonates with another person,
yes.
and I have to use this experience and turn it into a positive.
Mhm.
So I am going to speak until I am no longer able to speak.
Well,
That's
I
just
love that. I
that's
think that's amazing. We've talked before about your rebirth day, and I love that, right? And most people, they want to forget about that experience. They don't want to bring it up. They don't want to talk about it. They want to forget that it ever happened.
right.
But you did something a little bit different. You call it your rebirth day. It's like your renewed life. How
Yes.
did you decide, and how did you make it a positive thing? And what is it right now that you're most grateful for in life, in your new life?
In my new life, I am grateful for so many things. But that rebirth day is extremely important to me because I wasn't aware. Obviously, I was unconscious for probably 3 to 4 days.
Hmm.
However, that was the day that my family expressed that I started fighting the intubation tube and I was breathing on my own again.
Okay.
So that was January 5th of 2009, and I overdosed on January 3rd of 2009.
Wow.
So took about 48 to 72 hours to for my body to, figure out if it was going to succumb to everything I had taken or if it was going to fight through. And I'm so grateful that I'm here. But
Yes.
the most basic things I'm grateful for is my breath, that I
Amen.
can breathe, that I can take a deep breath. And we
Mhm.
talk about pausing, that I can take that pause, take a few deep breaths, and keep going forward. That's really important to me. Anything that breathes is alive.
Mhm.
Anything that has breath needs that air and that breath to keep going forward. So I am extremely grateful for my breath. I'm extremely grateful for my family and my loved ones. I have a list. I am grateful for, you know, the opportunity to be here to express
Mhm.
that, this is a thing. And it's something that more of us, it doesn't take a rocket science to help somebody.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's just words. Sometimes it can be just good morning or hello.
Mhm.
But you never know how you affect someone else until you are faced with a moment like that.
Sometimes we burden ourselves with things that can wait. We oftentimes take on more, because we're superwoman or we're superman, or, we're so used to being, or we don't trust other people. So we don't delegate certain things. So we take on more than we can handle. How would you encourage people, or what advice would you give to people who are known to take on too much, to kind of take that pause, and empower themselves, have their own empowered pause, so to speak?
It's hard. It's hard when you get into the routine and the rhythm of moving and going and running and meeting your deadlines and doing everything you need to do and being a successful and a productive human being. But I always encourage anyone, fight for your peace.
Mm,
Fight for your peace, whatever that peace is. If it's taking a bath,
yeah.
if it's going to walk around the block, if it's um, taking drives, drive out of the city. Don't think that that moment has to be so big. It doesn't have to be
Right.
some grand, expression of, oh gosh, I went to get a massage and it was a 2 hour and it cost me $150, $200. No, you don't have to do that. Maybe take a shower.
Hmm.
And I had to start being intentional about my pause and intentional about my self-care. I'm not 100% there. There's some days I'm just like, I don't want to do it and I
Hmm.
don't care. But we're human and that's okay.
Yes. We're
Don't
all a work in progress,
exactly. We're
constantly.
not here to beat ourselves up and to, you know, look at the terrible things that we've done because we are not those things.
Right.
They are experiences.
Hmm.
So we can heal. We can
Yes.
have a second chance and a third chance and a fourth chance. I believe every day is a new chance.
Absolutely. Every new day is a new chance to start your life all over again and do something different to make it a better day, to make it a
Exactly.
better life. It's entirely up to you. So I
Exactly.
completely agree with that. So, you know, you're amazing, by the way. And I'm really grateful that you're allowing me to ask some of these candid questions because I know it's probably not the easiest thing to talk about. But in the nature of the business you're in, I think it's important for people to kind of have that little bit of a background, you
Mhm.
know? So, what advice would you give to someone who is maybe dealing with that heavy burden of those thoughts of suicide, or even further, you know, someone who is dealing with the guilt of not knowing that their person was going through something?
Um, hmm. Ask me one more time.
Sure.
I'm sorry. I
No,
heard
it's okay.
the,
No. So my question is, what advice would you give to someone who is burdened with those thoughts of suicide, and to the people who they love, who they're afraid to talk to or don't want to burden, you know, who now, especially if it's completed, who now have that burden of guilt, you
yeah,
know, that they weren't able to be there or to help or to see those triggers. What
right.
advice would you give to them?
Well, to the person who's suffering with the suicidal ideations, I would say please ask for help. Get help. That is a medical emergency. That is something that you should be able to go to your doctor and say, you know what, I don't feel great. I fear that I might hurt myself or maybe someone else.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people do not like to go into the ER, do not like to be kind of transparent in those moments, to feel vulnerable.
Hmm.
But I could say it's better to feel vulnerable than to lose your battle.
Right.
Um, we deserve to be here. I always say anyone who's born outside of our nature's weeds and things like that, we deserve to be here.
Absolutely.
So every life is precious, every life is important. And I encourage anyone who's feeling like that, that's a 911 call, that's a call to speak, that's a call to the person you trust the most.
Hmm.
That's something that it has to be done. There's no choice in the matter, because if you're feeling like this now, it doesn't mean that it's going to go away. It may not pass. I was feeling like that for a very long time. That last time I felt like that was for 8 months. I'm not sure how. I was fighting with myself for 8 months, but I eventually lost the fight.
Not quite.
Not quite. I
Thank
didn't
God.
lose. I didn't lose, but I had to hit that wall, um, and go through a traumatic experience that I think I probably had to go through it, but I know it shook a lot of people. It shook my family. It shook my friends. I may have lost some relationships because of that, but it's a learning experience.
Do you regret it?
No,
Why?
I don't, because I was in such pain prior to the overdose. I don't think I would have met Margaret and started seeing life differently. I don't think I would have had the time to sit still and really figure out what's going on with my life. I've been so blessed to have time to sit still. A lot of us don't get that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to work, we have to go, we have kids, we have responsibilities. It's not easy to sit still. My life is kind of limited in certain ways, but that's not always the case. But I don't regret it, because I know I couldn't have gotten to this point that I'm at today.
Yeah.
I had to hit that wall, and people had to know what was going on with me, because I wasn't in a position, or I couldn't verbally pull it out.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't pull it out until I thankfully woke up. And from that day forward, it has been some challenging days, but from that day forward, I've seen things a little differently.
Okay. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, I, for one, am grateful that you didn't complete it. I mean, you've touched my life in many, many ways. You know, we talk on a regular basis, you know, and we talk about some pretty intimate and candid things sometimes. So I know I appreciate you. And I'm sure everyone here on our panel feels the same way. I know there's someone, if not most, people who are here whose lives you've touched in some way. So I appreciate you and I want to thank you for the you that you are. I think you are absolutely amazing. You're beautiful inside and out.
Why, thank
Want
you.
to know, you're very
Yes.
welcome. What is it or how has your life gotten better since that ordeal?
Oh, wow. How's it gotten better? I have better relationships.
Mm,
I have genuine relationships now that I can be my full self in.
mm,
I don't feel self conscious about talking about obviously what I've gone through.
mhm,
I feel like my life is an open book, and I've been blessed in so many ways as I look back at it, even though there's been some traumatic experiences and, you know, they happened. I can't undo those, but there have been so many beautiful experiences since that day and up till today. I've met people that I wouldn't have allowed in my life previously for fear of
mm,
being seen, or,
mm,
they might figure out something was going on, and I didn't want that closeness or that vulnerability.
mhm.
Uh, I know now I found my voice. I can't be quiet. I'm talking all the time.
I love
Um,
it.
and I know how to love differently and love fully because I had to learn how to really love myself and understand and accept my full self, um, in order to still be healthy in this process. So, in loving myself, I learned how to love other people in different ways that I wasn't really familiar with before. The therapy that I did after the overdose was very intentional and very focused
Mhm,
to talk about trauma and to deal with um, bipolar disorder and dissociative disorder, things of that nature.
mhm,
Prior to that, I was in therapy, not to say it wasn't helpful, but it was kind of like a band aid approach. Every week I would go, this is what happened this week. Okay, this is what we're going to do. And that was it. It wasn't really dealing with the real past tense trauma that needed to be handled and looked at and
mhm.
expected and, talked about.
So you didn't get to the root of the cause.
I was not getting to the root prior
Mm,
to 2009. And I had been in therapy for 10 years. Um, but I wasn't utilizing that person the way I utilize Margaret or my current therapist now.
was it a trust issue or were you afraid of being judged even though, they
All of
can't?
that.
Yeah.
And I realized that I have a tendency to take care of people in any situation. So I wanted to be the good patient, the
Mhm,
not stress anyone out. And that is not my place. It's not my job. It wasn't my job, but that's what I know I was doing. I
right.
was masking for the therapist, and even
Mm.
he was not able to show what was going on or see what was going on.
So, how would you tell someone who's dealing with these thoughts how to go about finding the right therapist to help them in their situation? Because, I mean, I've tried therapy before and it wasn't a good experience for me,
Yeah.
but I have friends who have also sought therapy and they've had great experiences. So, how would you direct someone to find the right therapist for their situation?
Finding therapists shouldn't be so challenging, but I realize that sometimes it is, especially in our community.
Hmm.
But I find someone who will have the same goals in mind as you do. You want to go into therapy with a goal. One, what are your goals? Why are you there? Is it to feel stronger? Is it to have a better relationship with your family? Is it to find yourself? I think every good therapist will ask you, okay, so why are you here? What's
Hmm.
going on? What are we working on?
Hmm.
Um, if they're not asking those questions, I might venture off to another person. Unfortunately, you're not going to find the greatest person in the first try.
Right.
Um, I've been blessed and I'm very grateful that I have had great relationships with people that have treated me, but sometimes it's a feeling. If you're not connecting with that person, you may have to go on.
Okay.
It's about it's not always about who's in your insurance, but who fits with you, who understands you, who has the same outlook as you, and who wants to be there to be able to support you because
How
they have
long do you stick with that person though? So obviously you're not going to know if that person really connects with you on the first or second encounter. So how
no.
much time should you give them before you say, you know what, this just isn't it for me?
I personally, it's funny because my new therapist, I was kind of like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. And it actually took me between 9 months to a year to get
Mm,
comfortable. But it depends on what you can tolerate and who that person is as well. It's if you're not feeling good in those sessions, if it's a burden to go to those sessions, if you feel
mm,
overwhelmed and you don't feel like this person is connecting with you or really considering what you're going through, those are red flags for me
mm-hmm.
that I wouldn't but a lot of times it's referrals.
Okay,
I like to go by referrals
that makes
from
sense.
another mental health practitioner and say, I know a great person. They may not be a network, but then if you get that one person and they may not be available, they will give you other people who
Mm,
are in the same kind of group or mindset as them that they all, people have networks, they work together.
absolutely. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so we've talked about you. We've talked about, what you've gone through, how Speak came about, but we really didn't talk too much about Speak itself. Can you tell people what Speak is? Like, what offerings are available for people? Why should people come to Speak? What is it that Speak is offering to specifically people of color,
Mhm.
right? But all people,
Right.
right? That can give them maybe a sense of peace
Hmm.
and direct them to where they need to be.
Sure. So Speak was developed as pretty much peer support. So I understand that there's a lot of work that goes into finding a therapist,
Mm-hmm.
calling that therapist, figuring out if they're in your insurance. When can you see them? Are they taking new patients? Um, I have a therapist now. I have a psychiatrist now. They have me on meds. I don't know what this is. What are these meds? To empower you to ask those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have empowerment, action, and kindness. Empowerment is giving you the information so you can feel like you have control of the situation,
Mm.
arming you with the things that you might need to go forward in that journey, be
Mm-hmm.
it understanding your insurance, understanding what you're entitled to,
Mm-hmm.
understanding how to talk to your doctors if need be. If
Mm-hmm.
if it requires a drive to the doctor, we do that too. If it requires encouragement or empowerment to say, you have an appointment tomorrow, are you okay to go? Those types of conversations as well. In a 90-day intensive that we have, it's supposed to be 90 days, but we stay until the person has reached their goals. And
Mm-hmm.
their goals would be around, if they don't have a therapist, to find a therapist or some type of support that could cover them in their mental health journey. Understanding again their benefits, and then setting up that kindness aspect, balancing your life. What do you love besides
Mm-hmm.
work, besides getting a paycheck? Remembering to be kind to yourself in the process of dealing with your mental
Right.
health. That
Mm-hmm.
is very important. I used to beat myself up on a regular basis. Sometimes I may still have behaviors that are not self-affirming, but for the most part, you have to find that compassion in yourself for yourself, especially when
Right.
you're dealing with this type of journey. So we
Absolutely.
have the Empowered Pause, which we are having now. We have the 90-day intensive.
Mm-hmm.
We have a number of kindness programs that we're working on, and we're hoping to collaborate with a couple of organizations so we can partner. And I can say, I have a client who wants to learn, um, sculpting or something to that effect. This is a place that I know that will take our clients. Maybe it'll be at a discounted rate, maybe it'll be a partnership, whatever the case may be, but finding different ways to address your mental health care without it being so clinical. We are
Mm-hmm.
not the doctors. You will have um, uh, medical professionals available
Mm-hmm.
that are your care team, but we can help you get to that care team, and we can support you in the process of finding that through therapist. Is it how are you feeling this week? Are you overwhelmed?
Hmm.
How was that conversation? How was that appointment with that therapist you went to on Tuesday? Did you like her? Did you
Right.
not? So in the 90-day intensive, I actually, well, we support that person for the first 30 days is 3 times a week. For the next from 60 to night from 30 to 40, it's 2 times a week, and then the last month it's once a week. But again, that 90 days can extend depending on where the person is. We do not um, leave a person unless they're ready to go until they are fully ready.
Okay.
So, and then we have, I think I spoke about most of the programs that we have right now. The
Hmm.
empowerment program, the Fearless Start. The Fearless Start is just kind of like the 90-day intensive, but it's smaller. You do not have to commit to 90 days. And even in the 90-day intensive, you do not have to commit to the entire 90 days, but it's helpful so we can have a process of building together. And the way Speak is created, we hope that our speakers, who are our clients, will eventually feel well enough to become a listener or become someone who can support someone else. Because of course, we know
Right.
once you have that experience, you can speak directly to that experience in someone else.
Right. It's hard to be empathetic when you haven't gone through something, you
Right.
know, and I think a lot of people suffer from that. So finally, because I know we've had you for quite some time and it's usually only 15 minutes. So
Yeah.
thank you everyone who was here, who stopped by, who was able to, maybe gain some information or um, find something that resonates with you in some way. I appreciate you all for being here. So before I let you go, Rachel, I want to know from you,
Yes.
if people want to donate, how would they donate?
They can donate directly by going to the Speak Initiative website, which is speaksuicideprevention.org. It's on the banner that's scrolling by, and there is a give tab directly on the website. It goes straight through Give Butter, which is a platform that we're using, and it's very straightforward. So that's how you can give. And I also will probably um, well, I like to say a birthday plug. My birthday's next Wednesday.
Hey,
So
happy
maybe
birthday.
I will do a fundraiser for Speak as well and put it as my birthday gift. If anyone wants to give to this great initiative, that will be a way that you will be able to give as well.
I love that. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Rachel. You have
You're
been a
welcome.
wealth of information tonight. You've been completely open and transparent. A lot of times people feel like they're going through these things themselves. We don't realize that someone else is going through the
Right.
exact same, it may not be the exact same issue, but that
Mhm.
thought process or, that burden, that
Right.
weight that we often feel like we're carrying, it helps to know that someone that you see as yourself, right?
Mhm.
Someone like-minded or, on, for lack of a better term, your level,
Right.
right, is suffering in many ways, right? And it's not so much that misery loves company, but just
Mm.
knowing that someone can understand my plight, someone
Yes.
understands what I'm going through, and I'm actually not alone. So thank you so much for being completely transparent and talking to us here tonight. I truly appreciate you. Thank you again, everyone who came out tonight. Drop some sevens in the chat.
That's an any.
That's a
That's an any.
yeah, yeah. But thank you so much, guys, for coming. I truly, truly appreciate it. Rachel,
Thank you
thank you.
so much. Have a great evening, everyone. Take
Good night,
care.
everybody.